Welcome to the NHL Ice Guys for Thursday, November 9th. I'm Ian Cameron for Sportsbook Review. Back at it, ready to break down the Thursday NHL hockey card. A bunch of games to talk about. 30-22 best bets record to hopefully improve on and keep cashing in some tickets with that as well at the end of the show. Everybody loves our best bet segment. As always, joined by my Ice Guys, Alex B. Smith, Andrew McInnes, and Dana Lane. Guys, we're going to get right to the card. We're going to start at the top with Chicago, Philadelphia, rotation 1 and 2. We've got the Philadelphia Flyers, about a -115, -120 home favorite, total sitting at 5.5 here in this hockey game. A little bit of a revenge spot for the Philadelphia Flyers. As you might remember, Chicago coming off a stinker of a game against Colorado when they played Philadelphia at the United Center. I think it was last week, and Joel Quenneville read his team the Riot Act. A hard, tough practice, bag skate the whole bit, and Chicago responded with one of their better efforts of the season, 3-0 shutout over Philly. So Flyers looking to avenge that loss here. And Chicago, though, it was a short-lived little bump, I guess you could say they got following that win, losing their last game most recently over the weekend. And again, struggling to score goals. And what's Joel Quenneville done? Big news in terms of line shakeups. He's going back to the well with something that worked well for him in 2010 in years past, in winning Stanley Cups, having playoff success, the whole bit. We're going to have Kane, Taves, and Patrick Sharp together on the Chicago Blackhawks top line, trying to spark what's been an inconsistent team in terms of producing offensively in recent weeks. We'll see if that jumpstarts this Blackhawks offense a little bit. Of course, our resident Blackhawk fan, Alex B. Smith, has a take on this Blackhawks Flyers game tonight. Alex, what do you think? Is this shakeup and this reunited and it feels so good move for the Chicago Blackhawks, putting Patrick Kane, Jonathan Taves, and Patrick Sharp back together again? Is it going to pay off? Is it going to result in goals? And more importantly, is it going to result in a win for the Blackhawks in the city of brotherly love here tonight?
I think it'll bring a little bit of energy to the team overall, but Sharp is not even close to the player that he was back in 2010. And Kane, I feel like it seems as if the workload that he's had to shoulder, being the top guy, the top scorer for years to come now, seems like that might have taken a little bit of a toll on him. Obviously, he doesn't have his best line mate in Artemi Panarin anymore. I think that has an effort with the lack of production from him as well. But you look at this matchup, and of course the trend going back is that the Hawks haven't won a regular season game in Philadelphia since 1996. The irony is that it was on this day in 1996 when they picked up that 4-1 victory. So for what that's worth, maybe some luck will strike again on November 9th. But obviously both teams are struggling right now. At least Shane Gostisbehere is back for Philadelphia. And they said Radko Gudas could be back from that concussion pretty soon. So finally getting some of those key guys for Philly back on that blue line. But it should be an interesting game. I'm not touching it as far as betting purposes, though. But it'll be interesting to see if the Hawks, Lightning strikes twice on the same date and they can get finally get that regular season win in the city of brotherly love.
Yeah, we talked about it on a couple of recent shows at the Ice Guys. The Philadelphia concerns are really with their blue line. That's an area of concern in terms of depth for them. I think when they're fully healthy, they can ice at least a somewhat competitive, decent core of six defensemen. But when they start chipping away and injuries start to pile up on that back end, you've seen the issues the Philadelphia Flyers have had with that in recent games. They've had to deal with those injuries on the blue line, and as a result, that hot start that the Flyers had to the season, they've kind of tailed off a little bit. We'll see what they're able to do here against Chicago. I was favoring Philadelphia initially here, good spot for them, but Chicago making these changes, trying to get things jump-started a little bit, and the Flyers again. We're talking about -115, -120 with a team that hasn't played their best hockey the last week to 10 days, team that's banged up on the blue line. I'm not sure that's penultimate value to take Philadelphia here in this game. We've got Edmonton, New Jersey, rotation 3 and 4. Next game on the card. Edmonton laying -125 on the road, total sitting at 5.5, pretty much across the board in this hockey game. Edmonton Oilers finally getting a victory away from home the other night against the New York Islanders. Hard-fought win, although it's, again, the goals for this team still hard to come by and still hard to fathom why they're hard to come by when you've got, ever since you've had Leon Draisaitl back, supposed to really be helping this team at the offensive end of the ice. But, boy, it's still been a chore and a challenge for the Edmonton Oilers to really put the puck in the net on a routine basis, and it continues to be that way, sneaking out a 2-1 win against the Islanders in Long Island, now taking on this New Jersey Devils team that for the season, 9-5, but That hasn't been New Jersey's best work in recent games. They've lost 3 straight for the first time all year, losing to the Oilers last week, 6-3 in Edmonton. So it's a quick, short turnaround rematch here between these two teams. A 5-4 shootout loss against Calgary and a 3-1 loss against the St. Louis Blues at home, which was good for a lot of us here on the Ice Guys show. A lot of us had St. Louis. Dana had it. I think Alex had it. It was my best bet the other night, the St. Louis Blues, and they got the job done against New Jersey. Now can New Jersey bounce back? It's a 3-game losing streak. They're plagued by injuries that have caught up to them a little bit in recent games. They've played the last few without Marcus Johansson, left winger, questionable once again tonight due to that concussion. So that's a concern as well for the New Jersey Devils. And really, are we going to start to see this team, I don't know about regress offensively, but tail off a little bit? I don't think you can keep scoring at the clip they have. And in the last few games, they scored 3 goals against Edmonton, they had 4 against Calgary, pretty good output there, but just the 1 against the St. Louis Blues. Even though they fired a decent amount of shots on net, still it was a tough night for them offensively. Got heavily outplayed by St. Louis, but a situation where now with the injuries piling up, you wonder if the New Jersey Devils going to be able to keep moving forward as that team that just was scoring goals left and right. Their speed is still great across all 4 lines. They've really moved and worked hard to improve that, and that's been a reason why New Jersey's been, I think, a team that has taken some people by surprise, been able to get off to a better start than people thought. And now they take on this Edmonton team. Edmonton trying to gain some traction. The one issue I have coming into this game is, where's Edmonton's ability to win 2 games in a row? I haven't seen it. You look at the last 3 times they've been off a win. What have they done the next game? They've lost. Win against Chicago in overtime, they lose in Philly. Win against Dallas at home, they lose the next game against Washington. Win against New Jersey at home last Friday. You follow it up with the Detroit Red Wings, a team you should be able to handle, and you get shut out 4-0 at home. No consistency, no ability to string wins together for this Edmonton team. Can they finally do it tonight? Dana's got a thought on the Oilers-Devils game tonight. Dana, what's your bet? What are you looking at?
Yeah, thanks, Ian. Hey, look, I love these situations, and I know they've already played this year, but I love these situations where there was kind of a heated, controversial trade in the past, and a guy goes back home to play, and that creates a little bit of an emotion, and that's what we see, obviously, with Adam Larson going back to New Jersey, where he played 4 seasons. I went back and watched the first game, and if you look at that, I mean, he was a complete difference maker. He was inspired, and sometimes those sort of things inspire everybody around you. It inspires your defensive mate in Darnell Nurse. So, I mean, that pairing was absolutely as physical as I've ever seen them this entire season. And when you get not only Larson, but when you get Darnell Nurse throwing his body around and playing inspired hockey, I mean, that's a tough defensive combo to overcome for 22 minutes a night. So if you remember back to the last time that they played, Larson had 13 hits. He even had an assist in that game. So it was an inspired effort. And why is that important? Well, now we're talking about an Edmonton Oilers team that you'll have to admit has been uninspired this season. They've carried the pace of play for the most part pretty well, and even in that game against New Jersey, they completely carried that pace because they were playing some inspired hockey. And so when you have a situation like this, when somebody goes back home, I think it really helps everybody else to up their game a little bit as well. If you look at them statistically, I mean, they're definitely up there in shots on goal, which is good for me. But then I look at, okay, what kind of shots on goal do we have? Are these shots that are coming from the perimeter, or are they in the low slot area, where you really can get some greasy goals? And honestly, if you look at their shot chart, a lot of those goals have not come down low. But where they have the game where they did come from down low is against New Jersey. And it's the last time they played 4 of the 5 goals, and of course 3 of the 4 goals, and of course the 5th one was an empty netter, came in the low slot area. So they outworked New Jersey last time that they played, and I don't know if that has anything to do with Adam Larson being inspired. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but I do know that against New Jersey, they looked as good as they did at any point in this season. And in fact, you want to talk about inspired efforts. I mean, the last time we really saw Edmonton play an inspired effort or inspired 60 minutes was against the Calgary Flames to start the season, in which they shut them out 3-0. And I think that might have been the worst thing that could have ever happened to this team, because that intensity level just is not there in the same way that it was last year. So I think it's going to be a very physical game. I would specifically look for Larson and Nurse to make an impact tonight. And of course, in the last game, Cam Talbot was sensational as well. So they have to also rely on that factor. The Oilers historically have done pretty well against Jersey. A small sample size, but they've won 5 out of the last 6. So I like the Oilers tonight on the road against the Devils.
Yeah, maybe this is the night for Edmonton to win 2 in a row. It's tough, but I understand the reasoning. If you got to eventually, get a momentum. Doesn't a win have to spring you forward to the next game and give you confidence? Maybe this finally is that time for the Edmonton Oilers. I know, side perspective, I'm probably not going to be involved, but I can see the case for Edmonton. Can they finally win 2 in a row? And the under, by the way, 6-0 in the last 6 Edmonton road games. I mean, this is a team that all season long on the road, they've played this lower scoring, tight checking style. So again, this is a New Jersey team that I've been reluctant to bet under the total based on their start, but it's not a night I'm looking to bet New Jersey over. That Edmonton under track record on the road is pretty darn strong. And with their problem scoring goals in bunches right now, that's probably the way the Oilers are going to have to win games at this point in time till they get their offense figured out. Next game up on the card, we've got Minnesota, Montreal, rotation 5 and 6. No line yet on this game. There's only 2 games on the card with no line at this point in time: Minnesota, Montreal, and Tampa, LA. But again, usually this is the hour, as we're on the air, where we do see lines start to get posted for these games. So if we have a line for this Montreal game and for the LA game prior to going off air, we will pass that along the side and the total for those 2 games. Definitely want to get that information out to you. By the way, I didn't get to it earlier in the show. Check out sportsbookreview.com. That website, free picks, free articles, live odds, sportsbook rating guide. It's all the resources and the tools there at your disposal. It's going to make you a more informed sports bettor and a more successful one as far as I'm concerned. So always make sure you check out sportsbookreview.com. The incredible content there. The articles are fantastic. Dana contributes NHL articles to that. Dave Malinsky's Point Blank column every day is must-read material. It's going to make you very smart in terms of sports betting, all at the website, and the links below the video as well to all of SBR's social media platforms. Make sure you check those out as well and give this show a thumbs up and a like if you're enjoying it. We certainly hope you are. Going back to this Minnesota-Montreal game too, guys, this is it's a revenge spot too for the Montreal, I almost said Alouettes, Montreal Canadiens. If they end up they got absolutely steamrolled in Minnesota. I think it was last week. There's a lot of these games, you notice: Edmonton, New Jersey, Minnesota, Montreal, Chicago, Philly, East versus West matchups, and they're quick turnaround revenge games. They're knocking out these East versus West meetings, these 2 games where you play teams from the opposing conference twice. They're knocking these games out early. Chicago, Philly are done with each other after tonight for the rest of the season. Same with Edmonton, Jersey, and now same here with Minnesota and Montreal. So that's been an odd little scheduling quirk. But getting back to this, I mean, revenge spot for Montreal. They did not play well in Minnesota last week. Do they bounce back? How about the Charlie Lindgren story? Let's we'll talk about what he's done. Unbelievable job for the Montreal Canadiens in 2 games starting in net, given Price, while Price has been battling these nagging injuries, and Lindgren has stepped in there. And we're joking on a show last week, all of us, Dana and I especially, about his AHL numbers. Here he is stepping in here and taking the NHL by storm, playing well, giving Montreal a chance to win. And again, don't have a ton of film, don't have a ton of knowledge, don't have a ton of history on this guy. So he's able to take advantage of that, maybe outperform what a lot of people think he's going to do in between the pipes. And that's what we've seen from Charlie Lindgren. And we'll see if he can keep the good times rolling here against this Minnesota Wild team. Of course, it's worth noting was Carey Price in net when they last played these 2 teams. It was going to be Charlie Lindgren most likely tonight for the Montreal Canadiens, looking to keep this surprising little hot streak he's had since assuming the cage for the Montreal Canadiens over the last couple of games. So it's an interesting game to talk about. Alex has a thought on it. Andrew has a thought on it. Let's start with Alex. What are you looking at with Minnie and Montreal?
Well, two big notes. One thing, you look at this is the second of a back-to-back for Minnesota. They played last night and lost in Toronto. Alex Stalock was supposed to get the start, but then he eventually left because his wife they had their first child yesterday. So he's not on the trip. It's Nicholas Svedberg that's now going to be the backup from what I'm reading. I don't know if he's going to get the start tonight, so I think we're going to probably have to wait a little longer probably to see a line here, because they're going to determine whether it's Dubnyk or Svedberg that is starting for the Wild. So that's something to keep a note of. Also, you look at this game flew over the total when they played up here in St. Paul. You look at 7 of the last 10 games for Montreal gone over the total. 5-0-2 the last 7 road games for the Wild have gone over the total. So it possibly, if we see a battle of, I guess you could say, backups between Lindgren, his 3rd straight start, and then Svedberg potentially, I'd look at possibly looking at the over here in this game.
Yeah, does the Charlie Lindgren bubble burst? I think that's what we're all waiting on. That's what we're all wondering on. Can it really keep up this way for a guy that, probably wasn't expecting at any point to be getting a ton of, like with Maxime Lagacé in Vegas. I mean, he didn't expect to be in the crease in the NHL for this kind of extended time, and now you're seeing that with Charlie Lindgren. But so far you can't argue with facing 69 shots in your first 2 starts and only giving up 2 goals on those 69 shots. You're doing something right, and so far that's been the case for Charlie Lindgren. Something to watch moving forward. He might have another game or 2 where he has success, it continues, but eventually there's going to be enough footage on this guy at the NHL level that you're going to see opposing teams, opposing shooters do their scouting report, make their adjustments, look for the holes in this goaltender's game. That's what everyone does when they're dissecting the opposing goalie prior to the game. And I think eventually at some point you're going to see Charlie Lindgren come back to earth just a little bit. We'll see if it's tonight. Andrew, what are you looking at here in Montreal with your beloved Habs hosting the Wild?
Guys, thanks a lot, Ian. Well, I really do think that this back-to-back spot's really going to hurt Minnesota. I think, again, I'll say it again, it's one of those underrated things. And, on a back-to-back coming out off a loss to the Leafs, I don't think Minnesota really had control of that game through the whole 60 minutes. And, looking at this Habs team, guys, I have to say, I wouldn't usually say this about Claude Julien, but I am impressed with him with one thing, and that's his ability to adjust lines. It seems as of late he's had no problem adjusting lines. He moved Galchenyuk up with Drouin. Pacioretty and Placanitz have actually been playing together in Gallagher. He's doing a great job. And the one thing about that is, you and I always talked about it last year, Ian, is that this Habs team, when they can score, it really helps them out because they have goaltending. I mean, now they're getting goaltending with Lindgren, but Claude Julien is actually a defensive-minded coach. I mean, they hired a coach when they were struggling to score that is completely defensive-minded. So now that they're actually having the ability to put up goals, they're putting up, at least 3, 4, 5, 6 goals a game. Now they're actually having the ability in the 3rd period to learn how to play some defense, to sit back and protect their own goalie, protect the net a little bit more when they get that cushion of a lead. And tonight, when the Minnesota Wild come to town, I think it's going to be a little bit different. They're going to be tired. They're probably thankful they didn't have to deal with Austin Matthews last night, but I still think that after that little loss to the Leafs, they've been a inconsistent team all year, in my opinion. I think the Wild started off this year a little bit higher than people really expected them to, and I don't think they'll really continue that train whatsoever. So, in my opinion, this is going to be a 3-1, 4-1 kind of game for the Habs. I think they shut out this Minnesota Wild team. I look to take them on the money line or even the puck line.
All right, so money line and even the puck line at -1.5 goals. And if the money line price is a little steeper than maybe Andrew wants, so keep an eye on that. And again, we'll update that. If there's a line posted for that game before we get off the air, maybe we'll come back to Andrew and we'll ask him if he prefers money line or puck line at the prices we get when that line gets released. We've got Arizona, St. Louis next up, 7-8, -240 for the St. Louis Blues. Huge favorites against the Arizona Coyotes, who unfortunately can't get out of their own way. 2-15 on the season. It's been an absolute rough go for this team, and it's continued. No question about that. Now they're up against it, facing this St. Louis team. Again, I stay steadfast. This team's they've got wins in them at some point, but again, it's just they're snake bit right now. They're honestly not playing a terrible brand of hockey. But again, the goals have dried up a bit. Still not getting enough quality play at the defensive end of the ice, and as a result, this team is just continuing to struggle, and it's been a problem area. And then you look at this head-to-head meeting: 0-5 for the Coyotes last 5 trips to St. Louis, 7-24 the last 31 head-to-head meetings against St. Louis. This has not been a pretty head-to-head series whatsoever. for the Arizona Coyotes. And the loss of Hjalmarsson on the blue line really hurts. I mean, he's been out with an upper body injury, and we've really seen this team have trouble breaking out of their own zone a lot more since that injury. We've seen this team really get hemmed in, give up more shots since Hjalmarsson went down. So that's a big loss on the back end for a team that's, already a marginal defensive hockey team. Now you take out, a guy like Nicholas Hjalmarsson, who's one of your key cogs back there, one of your key stalwarts back there, probably next to Jason Demers, maybe a Luke Schenn, some of your better defensive-minded defensemen on that Arizona blue line. And without him, it's been a problem. They have, of course, Jacob Chikrin, who they've got a ton of expectations for, a high ceiling for this guy. He hasn't played yet a game this season. So Arizona, tough straits. I'm always mildly, and tonight, because St. Louis is playing great. I mean, you can't take anything away from them. Great record, 12-4, 6-1 at home. I'm always going to be interested in at least in the next several games making a case for Arizona in this price range, just because I think some of their stats are better than their record is. But I've tried to take this little small stab with Arizona a few times the last week to 2 weeks. Hasn't worked. Not in any hurry to do it here. St. Louis has been just absolutely fantastic, really, considering the fact that, again, with all the injuries they've had to deal with, and they've gotten, more goals than people thought, too, from this hockey team, which has been impressive. And you see how big Tarasenko is for this team. There was talk he wouldn't play against New Jersey the other night. He ends up suiting up, and look at the game he has. He was absolutely terrific. He is absolutely the key cog offensively for this St. Louis Blues team, and Tarasenko proved it the other night. But there's weapons now on this team. Braden Shannon has given this team a little bit of a boost offensively. Jaden Schwartz is a good player on the offensive side of the puck. So this team does have maybe slightly more goals in them than they've had in years past. Petrangelo's made more of an impact offensively from the blue line as well for this Blues team. We know Parayko's got that booming shot that he is capable of finding the back of the net. So St. Louis is I think a slightly improved offensive team, and certainly in their recent results we've seen that. So as much as I want to make a case for Arizona, I think the worm could turn for them a little bit at some point. They're really missing Hjalmarsson, and until he's back there, I think it's going to be a tough time for this team at the defensive end of the ice. So it's a game I'm going to probably stay away from. Slightest of leans to zone only, because I think the line's a little inflated, but I've tried it with Arizona a couple times, hasn't worked. I'm not in a rush to do it again. We've got Detroit, Calgary next up. Rotation 9-10. Calgary a -160 home favorite against the Detroit Red Wings, who have been hard trying. Give them credit. I mean, they have surprised some people with their results so far, because they finish up this Western Canadian road trip after back-to-back wins against Edmonton and Vancouver. Now they're looking for the 3-0 sweep out in Western Canada tonight. Total, by the way, for that Detroit-Calgary game, 5.5, shaded slightly to the under. Can the Detroit Red Wings do it? This is a team that didn't get a lot of love in the preseason prognostications. Is a team that hasn't been highly power rated in the betting markets throughout the NHL season, yet the Detroit Red Wings are a respectable 8-8. On the season, and Calgary 8-7. So really, there's only a half game difference between these two teams in the standings, even though the expectations before the season were much higher for Calgary than they were for Detroit. Calgary off a 5-3 loss to the Vancouver Canucks. Weird game. They played well. They outshot Vancouver 32-21, carried the play to them extensively. Vancouver was great in net that night, and it seemed like every shot Vancouver was throwing at the net and that Mike Smith was going in. It was just one of those weird net games for Calgary. They deserved better fate, in my opinion, than losing 5-3 to Vancouver. We'll see if the Flames have a bounce back in them tonight. We've got Dana and Andrew with thoughts on this Detroit and Calgary game. Let's start with Dana. What are you looking at here in the Saddle Dome?
Well, we could take what we said the other night and basically apply it here, because I'm on the total. And as you said, that the Calgary the Wings are off of their Canadian road trip, so you might be getting a little bit of a look ahead situation here, where maybe they get a couple of goals on the board and go into defensive mode because they're more worried, or more their heads are more about getting home than it is finishing off the game, maybe, or offensively at least. A lot of times teams go into a shell once they have a little bit of a lead, and they know they're going to be headed out the next couple days or the next day. If you take a look at this road trip, not one of these games, except the Arizona game, reached a total of 6. So if you throw out the over in the Arizona game on Halloween, 7 of the Wings games, or even if you don't, 7 of the Wings' last 8 games have gone under the total. And as far as the Flames are concerned, Ian, we're still in a situation where I'm trying to figure out where any other scoring is going to come from other than Gaudreau and Monahan. And I know that they look really good the other night against Vancouver. I agree with your assessment, but honestly, I still don't know if we're betting the total if I'm with a Calgary team that has the ability to push that total over the number consistently. As far as we talked earlier, as far as the Calgary Flames are concerned, we also have to figure on the fact that Mike Smith has played extremely well. His goals against average is not great, but certainly his save percentage is better than probably at any point in his career. His .923 save percentage, if you go back, is as good as he's played, and I think he's kind of played a rejuvenated brand of hockey for Calgary, and he's won 3 out of his last 5 starts. And in fact, at one game that they lost against Dallas, he allowed just 2 goals. So I'm pretty confident in Mike Smith. I think he's as we talked about earlier in the season, when Mike Smith got a change of scenery, I think he's been a better goaltender. He wasn't at his best against Vancouver. There were a couple goals that, certainly wasn't his fault. I thought I've seen him better in the past, but that just kind of leads me to believe that he's going to have a bounce back effort tonight. You also, on the other side of that, are getting Peter Mrazek, who is coming off of his best effort, his shutout against the Oilers on Sunday. He's another guy whose goals against average is not spectacular, but he showed against the Capitals that in his 37 save effort that he can carry a heavy workload. And a lot of times, too, you see Detroit playing pretty well in front of him. In fact, in his starts this year, he's only had to make an average of 29 saves, which sounds like a lot, but really by comparison to the rest of the league, that's not a lot of saves per game. And there was also 2 games in there where he faced less than 25 shots. So Detroit plays pretty well in front of him defensively. The under in this series has cashed 72% of the time in the last 30 meetings. That works out to 18-7-5. So tonight I'm going under on this game, and what's good about this is I'm looking at the odds right now. The over is being bet pretty heavy on that. So you can get minus $1.06 at Pinnacle right now, and you might want to wait on that, maybe a little bit. I don't know if that's going to go down anymore, but I'm certainly going to be on the under in this game, under the 5.5.
All right, there we go. We're back. No, we had to kick Cy Sen out of this chat. What's he talking about here? Come to pay for the, what is it? Some stream or something like that. Yeah, get out of here, Cy Santa. Take that shit and go on home.
What's his name? Side Santa?
Yeah, it sounds like Side Santa. It's what Cy Santa going on here in this chat here. Unfortunately, I was listening to a great breakdown of the under, and you got some clown here. Plus, you can watch all the NBA games live on Bet365 with no cost. Some stupid sales pitch, some joker.
Well, I got a sales pitch too, as long as we're doing that. If we're doing that, let's just.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm kicking him out there while we're wrapping up. So I'm sorry for the dead air, but we had to take care of that situation in the chat. We haven't had many chat issues. Keep that crap for Gabe Morency's show in the late night hours here with the chat. We're kicking people out. Right? He's got to do that a lot in the late night hours on his show. We shouldn't have to do that here on the Ice Guys. It's a clean chat, clean show. Let's keep it that way. So yeah, Dana on the under, Detroit and Calgary. Let's get back to more important things here. Matters at hand. Detroit, Calgary under for Dana Lane. See if we can get a low-scoring game. And Detroit trying to go for a 3-0 finish on this road trip. That would really be something if they can pull it off. But you would think Calgary's got a better effort in them. Andrew, what are you looking at here in Calgary tonight?
Yeah, I'll keep things short and sweet. I agree with what Dana was saying. I think as far as Calgary goes, I think Mike Smith is in for a bounce-back game. But as far as scoring goes, I don't really see anyone besides Gaudreau or Monahan doing anything fantastic or anything to really hype me up. So I'm looking at the under in this game. I think as far as Detroit goes, I think they've been able to put up shots and they've been able to compete. But looking at this game as a whole, I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of action. I think it'll be a very defensive game. I think the neutral zone is going to be very clogged up. It's two teams that get a lot of shots, guys, but they're not a lot of quality shots, in my opinion. It's kind of like what Dana was saying about these two teams having opportunities. Both teams being strong in the offensive zones, but not being able to really finish the job. So which is why I think as far as this game goes, as it drags out, especially if Detroit gets that early lead, it's going to be a very defensive game. They'll probably set up some kind of trap to just kind of finish that game out, drag it out. So if you're looking for a game to watch, I probably wouldn't pick this game. It's the most exciting game on the card tonight, guys. But for me, this is probably my under for tonight.
There you go, another under. We got consensus with Dana and Andrew, under 5.5, Detroit, Calgary. And Alex, you've got a little thought here on this game. What else? What are you looking at?
Yeah, I'm going a different route. I'm taking the side here with Detroit. Like I said, they've been playing pretty good on the road trip. They've won 4 of their last 5. Like I said, they're going for 3 in a row tonight. And you look at their schedule. I mean, the fact that they've done so well on the road, they've played 11 of their 16 games on the road to start the year. So to go 6-5 heading into this game tonight on the road, that's not too shabby. So I'm looking at Detroit here, and I'll talk a little bit more about it later as we get to our best bets.
There we go, foreshadowing. You're right. And Alex did have something on this game. I just saw it in the games list now, so my bad on that. So, yeah, Detroit is what Alex is looking at here in this game, Calgary, Detroit. We move on to the next one. We got 2 games left, Vancouver and Anaheim. A lot of West Coast action. You got Calgary, a 9:05 Eastern, 6:05 Pacific start, and you've got a couple 10:05, 10:35 Eastern, 7:35, 7:05 Pacific starts in Anaheim and LA tonight. So lots of late night puck watching for you West Coast and for you late night folks on the East Coast. I'll be watching. I never go to bed till 2 a.m. Eastern time. So I'll be watching these late night games as I always do. Vancouver, Anaheim, 11-12. We've got Anaheim minus 150 at home. Total 5.5, shaded to the under in this hockey game. And the Anaheim Ducks, man alive, what can this team possibly do to get the ship righted? I'm not sure at this point. You look at the problems this team continues to have consistently, snowballing all around them. And really, that is, to me, very disheartening what happened the other night. You come out storming against the LA Kings. Couldn't have asked for a better start. You've got 2 goals in, the first 10 minutes? There's that offense finally coming to life for the Anaheim Ducks. Looking like we might finally snap this losing streak and get back in the win column. But the LA Kings, give them credit. Stuck with it. Battled penalties, battled all kinds of things. It was a chippy game. It was back and forth. It was intense. But the LA Kings stuck with that hockey game, didn't let anything really get away from them, and they end up battling back, snatching that game away from the Anaheim Ducks, tying it, and then winning in overtime, and a disappointing overtime loss, 4-3 for the Anaheim Ducks, now extending their losing streak to 4 games. At least they showed signs offensively of perking up just a little bit. But as we all talked about, and I think a lot of us had LA that night, Alex, myself, Dana, on the LA Kings in that comeback win against Anaheim the other night. We're just worried about backing this Anaheim team right now. We all are. We've got our concerns. We've got our issues. John Gibson dealing with a concussion, questionable, and he hasn't even played all that consistently when he's been in there. Andre Kasha, a very underrated forward on this Anaheim team, left the last game with a head injury sustained against LA. Questionable for him to play tonight against Vancouver. In this hockey game. You've got, of course, the big ones are Getzlaf and Kessler, as we've talked about ad nauseum. Those 2 guys out for this team. We've talked about Cam Fowler missing time now. He's not back until next month with that knee injury. That hurts them big time on the back end. Puck moving, power play, penalty kill, all those situations. Cam Fowler's a big part of that for this Anaheim team. It's just a lot of injuries, a lot of key significant injuries where it's hard to replace Kesslers and Getzlafs and Fowlers on this team. And as a result, they're having trouble. And this is, say what you want about Vancouver. Are they a flawed team? For sure. But they work hard every night. They're definitely, from a talent perspective overall, not as good as Anaheim, but Anaheim's got too many injuries to deal with right now. Anaheim's got too many issues to deal with right now. I've had no interest, none, zero, laying minus 145 in this kind of range with the Anaheim Ducks right now, given all their problems. So if I had to, I'm looking at Vancouver as a dog here. Vancouver's going to give you that hard effort. They have not been overmatched in a lot of games this season. They've been right in pretty much every hockey game they've played. Got to give them credit for that. I think it's worth a bet, actually. I was on the fence, but now that I'm talking here, I'm talking myself into it. More and more. Vancouver makes some sense. I mean, you're going to get that effort from them, as long as they to me, stay out of the penalty box. Don't give Anaheim power plays. They should be fine. Henrik Sedin, he finally got his first goal of the season Tuesday night. I think that's a weight of the world off his shoulders, the captain of the Canucks. Maybe it gets him going a little bit going into this hockey game tonight. So, again, it's a dire straits right now for this Anaheim Ducks team. Until they show me semblance of putting a 60-minute performance together, that's not a price range I'm taking Anaheim in, laying this kind of price with them. Vancouver off a 5-3 win against Calgary, and they beat Pittsburgh at home 4-2 as well. So they've won 2 of their last 3 games. And I'm telling you what, this team, is definitely not loaded with offensive depth, but they're a lot better with a healthy Brock Besser on the ice. He's been good. I've been impressed with what I've seen from Brock Besser here on this Canucks team on a line with Horvat and Sven Baertschi. It's been very impressive to watch them. Jake Virtanen's made more of an offensive impact this season so far as well. So as long as those 2 guys contributing, Bo Horvat, Besser, maybe Henrik Sedin's got a little bit of confidence again after finally scoring the other night. So I think there's cases to be made here for Vancouver at the underdog price. Certainly I don't have many cases to make laying with Anaheim right now, not with their struggles. We've got Dana Lane with a thought and a bet on this game. Dana, what are you looking at here with the Canucks and the Ducks?
Yeah, it's a broken record for me on this. I mean, again, and this is going to be this way for a long time. As long as Ryan Getzlaf and Ryan Kessler are out of the lineup, their top 2 centers, it's going to be very difficult for me to envision the Anaheim Ducks as a team that I can rely on as far as going over the total. I mean, Getzlaf could be out 3 months. He's got that fractured cheekbone. Kessler's on target to return sometime around Christmas. So this is going to be that situation for a very long time. And, you talked about the Kings game where the Ducks come out and they get 3 on the board, finally give the game up eventually to the Kings. And, I mean, they're getting goals from guys like Jared Boll. They're getting goals from Sammy Vatanen. I mean, Jared Boll is a guy that, he's a 4th-line winger, and Vatanen scored his first goal since last May. So I'm not really relying on these guys as far as when I look at the total to push me over. And let's not, again, overlook that loss to the Kings either. This is a game, believe me, that the Ducks wanted to win, a game that they circled on their calendar to resurrect their season. And what did they do? They dropped a heartbreaker. So it's very difficult for me to envision Anaheim playing an inspired brand of hockey tonight. Honestly, even in the manner in which they lost, I mean, they had a 3-1 lead going into that third period, and or a 3-2 lead going into the third, but it was the 3-1 game with less than a minute to go in the second. I just think the manner in which they lost that game, I don't envision this team coming out and playing better than they did against the Kings. And honestly, too, not only did they get beat in this game, the Kings thoroughly dominated Anaheim from that goal on. In fact, in the third period and in overtime, the Kings outshot Anaheim 22-7. It really was not. It was almost like the Ducks ran out of gas. So, in addition, we also know that the Ducks are going to be without Cam Fowler. They're going to be without Patrick Eaves, of course. And, this is a team that already is 20th in the league in scoring. They're playing another team who's 24th in scoring. And normally I would look at this situation and say, well, I like those dynamics to push this game over, but you can only kind of have that mindset if you feel like a team has the ability to do things. I mean, we could say, I had this discussion the other day about the Arizona Coyotes with somebody, and I said to him, I used them as an example because my conversation was, my friend said, hey, Team A needs to win tonight, and they're going to want to win. I said, want to win, and that's one word. Want to win is not a betting concept. If want to win was a betting concept, then every team would, you would not have teams like the Arizona Coyotes. So you do have to look at a specific squad and say, do they actually have the ability to come back and be better than they were in the game before? And I just don't know mentally where the Ducks will be in this one. It doesn't inspire me certainly to take the over. And Ryan Miller's going to get the start for the Canucks, and he's going to who took over for Gibson on Tuesday. And he's a guy that only has a save percentage of almost 95% in 5-on-5 situations and 929, 930 in shorthanded situations. So feel very confident with Ryan Miller in goal. So I'm going to go under the 5.5 of this game. I'm looking right now where you can get it minus $1.18 at Pinnacle. That looks like that's going to be the best number on the board.
Yeah, I think they're going to need Ryan Miller to come up heroic for them tonight, because I think there's going to be a problem pumping themselves back up to play and at their best and dominate the game territorially coming off that loss against LA. So this is a night where you need Miller to be strong, and he might be. This is, again, a game against his former team, the Vancouver Canucks. You would expect him to be pumped up for it, put his best foot forward in this game. So if he does, you got a good chance to stay under. Vancouver's not your prototypical over team. We know this is one of the more weaker depth teams in the NHL in terms of offense. So Vancouver, for me, under for Dana. I think maybe pair those up. You might be doing something pretty good there. Or if you want to be a little bit safer, you could do a parlay with the total and Vancouver puck line there. Plus 1.5 goals is if you care about that. It's going to be a tight game, though, low scoring, definitely. And I'm going to take a shot with Vancouver for certain at the plus price. It's worth it because, Anaheim in this price range with losing 4 in a row with all the injuries, you got to win and you got to pay this kind of price to ask them to win. No, thank you. So it's just on that alone, price point alone, going to be looking at Vancouver here as a dog. We wrap it up with the last game on the card, Tampa Bay versus LA. No lines yet, although I should point out BetOnline has the reason why I'm hesitant, and BetOnline does have openers. If you go to SBRodds.com, you'll see it. BetOnline has openers for the Montreal game. Montreal minus 135, total 5.5, minus 115 to the under. LA minus 137 at home against Tampa Bay, shaded to the under. But the problem that I have with mentioning just the lone wolf BetOnline numbers for the NHL is once it gets widely available at all the offshore books in Vegas, there's a huge spike in the number. Huge spike every time, it seems, with a lot of these games. So there's going to be probably a major difference with what you see now at BetOnline with these two games in Montreal and LA compared to what you're going to see when all the lines or all the sports books go to market with lines, sides, and totals on these games. So there's going to be a big difference. You're probably going to see a much different price than a minus 137 on LA or a minus 135 on Montreal once these lines become widely available. So that's why I'm always hesitant to mention what the BetOnline numbers are right now because there's going to be a major jump once those games go to market fully across all Vegas and offshore sports books. But we do have those numbers to go with right now with BetOnline, with LA as the favorite, with Tampa. Second night of back-to-back games. I had a piece of the Lightning. Alex did as well last night. Their win against San Jose, a convincing win. And I'm telling you right now, everybody's saying, look at San Jose. 2 goals or less allowed in, 5 or 6 straight games, playing great defensively. Yeah, but look who they played. Banged up Anaheim. LA is, not a juggernaut offensively. They've had some things fall their way in terms of opponents, in terms of quality of opponents. Now you're playing Tampa Bay. Speed, speed, speed. Skill, skill, skill. Across all 4 lines, an aging team is going to have trouble. I've said this over and over again with teams loaded with speed and skill. And Tampa Bay just, was fantastic. I mean, San Jose could not keep their Tampa Bay Lightning players in front of them at any point last night. And they ended up paying the price for it and getting really run out of the Shark Tank last night by the Tampa Bay Lightning. Tampa Bay, for real. I love watching this team play. How about the Kucherov and Stamkos tandem? About as lethal right now as it gets in the NHL. So an impressive win for Tampa Bay. Now, it's a little concern here, Tampa, second night of back-to-back road games, but I don't think it's crazy. You can't say to yourself that, hey, it's impossible for us to bet a team playing the second night of back-to-back games on the road. If the price is there, it makes some sense. The biggest concern, though, I have is Peter Budaj might be in net for the Tampa Bay Lightning tonight. Vasilevsky got the start against the San Jose Sharks. And if it's Peter Budaj, that 855 save percentage of his is staring me right between the eyes right now. That's not something I love, seeing that number staring at me. 855 save percentage for Peter Budaj. So if we indeed see him and John Cooper gives him the starting nod tonight, it's going to give me a lot of pause in terms of pulling the trigger on Tampa one more time tonight against the LA Kings, who are coming off that great comeback against Anaheim, as we talked about. Great win for them. We'll see where this goes. We have no lines, but we do have a thought on this game from Dana Lane on the Lightning and the Kings tonight. Dana, what are you going to be looking at once we get lines posted?
Yeah, I apologize, Ian. I sent you an updated list. I'm not actually on this game. I think I've given my 3 picks already, but I'm not actually on this game tonight. I had a hard time kind of deciphering which 3 I was going to go on, and I know I sent you Tampa Bay at one point, but I'm not on this game tonight.
All right, there we go. Makes it nice and easy. And Alex, just because you had Tampa last night, I'll ask you about this game. You're going to have any interest in it when the line comes out, or is this going to be a pass? You're taking that, or are you going to take that Tampa money from last night and just move on, or are you going to get involved again?
Yeah, no, I'm moving along with it. I mean, you look at like the last 2, they've lost 2 the back-to-back games, the second half of the back-to-backs they've had so far this year. Like I said, Peter Budaj most likely going to start tonight, so he's not a guy that I can really roll the dice with. Vasilevsky's clearly the number 1 guy there. Now he's won 12 of his last 14 starts on the year. So Tampa Bay, like I said, looking sharp. Might jump back on them again at the end of this trip in the next game, price pending. But yeah, I'm passing for the night with them.
All right, there we go. It's best bets time, and I came into this show not having a best bet selected, and I've just in the last couple minutes I've been rolling it over. What am I going to go with? It's a tough card for me. It really is. It's not. If I have one play for the clients, I'll be happy tonight. It's not one of my favorite Thursday cards. We've had better ones, but hey, we're going to find something for hopefully our viewers to eat on and win with tonight. From my perspective, best bets, and I know my ice guys have a best bet lined up as well. So let's see if we can keep the good times rolling. Like I said, best bets are 30-22 on the season. That's a good record. We'll take that any season. 30-22, first 52 plays. See if we can keep it rolling here tonight on this Thursday card. Let's start with Dana Lane. What's your best bet tonight?
Well, I'm going, and I agree with you too. I had a real hard time. I've sent you 3 different cards that I was going to talk about today, but I've kind of settled in on the Edmonton Oilers. There's going to be a time here where this team starts to take off. There's this, if you look at the NHL average, Ian, most guys who are leaders on their team factor in about 38, 39, maybe 40% of their team's total offense. And you got a guy like Connor McDavid who's now close to that 50% mark, or at least he was within the last couple days. And there's just too much leaning on Connor McDavid. There's going to be a time where this team is going to gel, they're going to excel, and I think they're going to push that accelerator button pretty fast. I think that happens tonight. I like the way they responded, and especially defensively against the Devils in their first meeting, and I think we're going to see more of that tonight. So I'm going to take the Edmonton Oilers minus $1.20 at 5 dimes over the New Jersey Devils.
All right, Edmonton Oilers for Dana Lane, his best bet for Thursday. Andrew, your best bet for tonight.
Well, if we're heading back to Minnesota versus Montreal tonight, guys, here's something funny I'll say about the Montreal Canadiens. People are talking about this Minnesota Wild team, how they kind of have people that aren't really usual suspects to be putting the puck in the back of the net, being successful for them earlier on in the season. So the one thing I find funny about this Montreal Canadiens team is that it's almost a good and bad thing. When you don't have any all-stars, when you don't have a Connor McDavid, you don't have a Sidney Crosby, an Austin Matthews, even Steven Stamkos kind of player, you get the point. You kind of have to have that depth. Like it used to be Carey Price was our only all-star. Carey Price was the guy you could really even call an all-star on this team. Now all of a sudden, he just had a pretty tough start to the year. We saw him go down with an injury, and now Charlie Lindgren's actually playing pretty well. So the one good thing about this Habs team, guys, and I say this with a smile on my face, is that when their depth is there, that means they're clicking. And that's what I'm seeing from them their past couple games right now, is that you really have no clue who's going to be that guy for the night that really stands out, that really sticks out for you as the hard worker and the leader for the Habs. Like you saw even last year during the playoffs for the Edmonton Oilers, like Dana just mentioned with Edmonton, they can't always rely on those Edmonton and Draisaitl plays, which is why I thought it was very interesting last year seeing, Zach Kassian have a couple of successful games, a couple shifts even where he's scoring, just hitting, being all over the puck. And it's kind of the same thing I expect from the Habs tonight. We've got guys like Paul Byron really stepping up, Gallagher actually scoring this year quite a bit. And of course, we're hoping to get that Drouin and Galchenyuk chemistry going. So look, looking at about minus 135. I do think that the game, I think the Habs win about 3 or 4-1 this game. I think Minnesota is shut down on their back-to-back. But I'll stick with the money line, guys. I'm confident enough. A winner is a winner. I don't really care about the price I'm getting sometimes. So we'll stick with the Canadiens money line tonight, guys, against the Minnesota Wild.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. They're Montreal money line as opposed to puck line. You're just never quite sure with Montreal that they can win by margin, win by 2 goals or more. So yeah, money line makes a lot of sense. Good spot too, because Minnesota just kicked their teeth in last week, and you would think Montreal would want to respond and maybe take advantage of a little bit of a road-weary Minnesota play in Toronto last night. Alex, your best bet for tonight after having you had a winner the other night for sure with your best bet, I remember. So you've been in good form with these. What do you got for Thursday?
Well, I'm going, like I said, out west with the Detroit-Calgary game. I'm looking at the Red Wings here. I think they're going to close out this road trip on a nice high note. They're playing well. Like I said, Peter Mrazek coming off of 36-save shutout performance in his last start. He's going to get the start here again tonight. Mike Smith hasn't done really well against Detroit. 6-7-3 lifetime against the Wings with a 2.68 goals against. So like I said, not a whole lot of offense with this Calgary team. I know you guys are talking about the under. You look at, especially on the power play, they've only scored 3 the last 21 power plays. Those 2 of those came in the last game against Vancouver. So like I said, not a lot of offense here for Calgary. I think Detroit has some good offensive options. I think they have the better edge in net tonight. So at a good plus price, I'm going with the Detroit Red Wings.
All right, Detroit Red Wings at the plus price for Alex B. Smith, his best bet. Like I say, I've only made a couple of solid bets and opinions right now on this card. Vancouver's one of them. It definitely was one that I'll definitely be betting on. Vancouver, smaller play. But I'm going to go back to Chicago and Philadelphia, and I'm going to look for this spark offensively to happen for the Chicago Blackhawks. And I certainly can't hurt. They're talking all the right things. It's offense. We got to get it going again for the Chicago Blackhawks. Maybe a chance with this loaded up top line. I know that might dig away at the depth of the other lines for Chicago, but you got to start somewhere. Maybe putting these 3 back together again, these stalwart veterans from back in the day, Sharp, Kane, and Taves, is going to spark Chicago against a banged-up, beleaguered Flyer defense. They're Edmonton. Dana, they're trying
I'm just saying it's a chat room thing. Everybody's like, could you hurry it along? So I said I'll just write it down on paper and put it up. Done.
There you go. All right, Edmonton. That's very good. So Dana, appeasing the viewers. You got to appreciate that. He listens to the viewers and he tries to make them happy and do what they say. Got to appreciate that. But yeah, I think Chicago's offense, is going to spark them a little bit. And hey, playing a banged up Flyer blue line, I think is going to spark your offense a little bit. And on the flip side, Philadelphia, offensively is fine. They've had for the most part a pretty good team in terms of offensive ability. We've seen Chicago struggle a bit at that end as well at times this year. So I'm going to go over the total in that game. Let's go over 5.5 minus 115. Chicago Philly over 5.5. My best bet for the Ice Guys, and that's going to do it. That's going to be a wrap for this show for a Thursday, November the 9th. Thanks again for watching. Over 100 viewers. We really appreciate it. Awesome amount of views for a live show this early in the day. We appreciate that. We've got Low Shack in the bag coming up next right here on SBR videos on the YouTube channel. Don't forget sportsbookreview.com. Check that site out daily for all your sports betting information. The link's below. Give us a thumbs up if you like the show. We're back Saturday, November 11th. Remembrance Day in Canada, Veterans Day in the United States. We'll be looking to get some more hockey winners for you Saturday with a loaded card. Until then, for Alex B. Smith, for Andrew McInnes, and for Dana Lane, I'm Ian Cameron for Sportsbook Review. Enjoy the Thursday night NHL action. We'll be back Saturday. Enjoy the games and good luck.